I've argued for many years, Jon Jones, if he would just be himself, so many people would be so drawn to him. And now, against his will, a lot of the real Jon Jones has come out. But you've also seen the reception for it. John's sitting up there at press conferences next to DC, humiliated. He doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to face the people.
Might as well have never happened.
And all of a sudden, everybody's cheering for him.
Yeah.
And you go put the camera on Jon and you watch him, you see he's confused. Everyone's cheering for him. John's looking around going, wait a minute. I didn't even want to be here today because I was so ashamed. I thought everybody hated me. And he's a guy that can't stand to be booed. John's one of those guys, he's got to be liked. He's looking around confused going, wait a minute, you guys like me? You guys are endeared? I did a hit and run. I got busted for, X, Y, and Z. Crowd didn't care. They were into it. We just want to know the real you. And that's the one thing that I always thought Jon needs to let people see, because here's the deal with Jon. Jon was coming out playing this Jesus Bible thumping world's greatest guy gimmick.
Sponsor dream.
Yeah, but he wasn't the world's greatest guy. However, he's a damn good guy. If you ever just sit and visit with Jon, forget about the mistakes. He's a young guy that came into some money and some spotlight. Take that out of it and just visit with him. You come away going, "Wow, I really liked him." I don't think he's the world's nicest guy, but that's a damn nice guy. But when he put on the persona that, no, I want to be known as the nicest guy of all time, people could just see it was fake. It's like, no, Jon, just be you, because you're funny. Jon dances a little bit. He's kind of a character. He likes to have a good time. He likes to stay up late. Just be that guy. A lot of people can relate to that. And I think against his will, that story has been told, but the end result is the same that I hypothesized, which is people endear him.
So that moment of recognition that you talk about, when he realizes that people are responding in a different way that he thought, and maybe realizing that this can be leveraged, did you have that same moment when you gave that interview about Anderson Silva speaking English?
I might have had it just before that. I started to, I do remember when I started to get a response, and I was a little surprised at the response. It was not the same one that I thought that I would get. But I did realize there is a reaction here. But, to speak on that press conference, I do remember that very well when I remember seeing how surprised he was at the reaction he was getting. And the same thing happened to Cormier. Cormier came out expecting to be the hero of the day, the white knight in shining armor, and the crowd's booing him. Cormier had the same surprised look on his face. He's getting booed, going, wait a minute, I'm the good guy. Jon's getting cheered, going, wait a minute, I'm the villain here. They were both completely lost. It made for a great press conference. I cannot wait to see those guys fight. I don't see that going any other way, though. I mean, to say that Jon Jones beat Daniel Cormier while high on coke is a factual statement. How does that role get reversed? I mean, all Cormier's done, stud, won all his fights, but he has gotten older. We know what comes with age. Generally speaking, and this is a rule in boxing that was taught to me by Max Kellerman, if a younger fighter beats an older fighter and they rematch, the younger fighter will beat him again, only easier. In my opinion, when it comes to fighting, specifically boxing, but fighting, if Max Kellerman says it, it is so. I mean, he is an incredible mind. Would you agree? Mm-hmm. He told me that statement leading into Weidman versus Anderson Part 2. He just said, look, if a younger fighter knocks out an older fighter and they rematch, he will knock him out again, only quicker. So I have to carry that with me. And I don't know that this fight goes any different, but I don't give a damn. They are getting my $50 and I can't wait.
And now Cormier is going the opposite direction, and now he's embracing this heel thing, which is an interesting thing. Right?
Sure.
Because now he's like, fine, boo me. Like, I'll play that role too.
Yes. And he handled it right. You remember when he said, I'm cashing checks and winning gold belts, so screw you all. It was like, Daniel, finally. Finally. That's what we need to hear.
Yeah.
Shove it right back in their throats. I've seen some basketball players. Was it Kevin Durant? I saw a gentleman, I want to make sure I have the name right, and I'm not positive it was Durant. He was on Jim Rome. And in fact, he wasn't on as a guest. Jim Rome just did this vignette to him and said, one of the reasons we don't like you is because you make it so clear to us that you want to be liked. So we're not going to give it to you. There's a wrestler named Roman Reigns right now that they just can't get over. I would argue it's the same thing. The reason no one likes him is because he makes it so clear that he wants to be liked. It's okay, Daniel. Come out, steer into it, shove it up everybody's ass and down their throat, and then wait to see their reaction. It'll be a lot louder. There is a pay-per-view tomorrow. Jose Aldo, world champion, defending his crown against Max Holloway. I'll tell you one thing that surprised me about this fight, and I do like that matchup, but it did surprise me. That it's on pay-per-view. I felt like this was a free TV card. It did surprise me that this was pay-per-view. What do you make of this fight?
Yeah, I mean, Aldo has never really been a pay-per-view draw, but it's kind of just the way the schedule shook out with this. They've had a lot of stars that have been injured. There's a lot of fights that have fallen through, and I think this is just the way the schedule lined up. You put Jose Aldo in Brazil, and he's going to do well. He's obviously a huge star in Brazil, so they're going to do well in that respect. Domestically, I don't know how it does, but he's a guy that's coming back from trying to rebuild himself, basically. And Holloway is just on fire. And it obviously is sort of the piece that's maybe puts the featherweight puzzle together as far as who's the rightful champ after the exit of Conor.
So tell me this. I think we can all agree we're not going to see great pay-per-view numbers here from a business standpoint, but are you expecting a sold-out arena?
Yeah.
I mean, don't forget, really? Jose can sell out an arena.
I mean, the guy has had a lot of push from the Brazilian media. The Brazilian media, from what I understand, the Brazilian media really likes him, and they've done a lot to promote him. He did the movie of his life story. I think he's not Anderson Silva level, but he's a popular fighter. And
Anderson, he was supposed to be on this card. I mean, there was all sorts of musical chairs there. I can't remember, where did he start? He was supposed to take on who? Who was his first opponent?
Gastelum. Yeah,
he was supposed to take on KG. That's right. And KG ended up losing his license for 3 months, canceled that fight. He then moved. They offered him Vitor. He said no to Vitor, but he asked for Romero with the caveat that it be an interim title fight. And then all of a sudden, he was just done. Now, when Anderson said he was done, did that mean, in your estimation of that statement, did that mean I am done with this card? I'm done training for this. I'm done dealing with this. Or was it a broader statement, which I am done? I'm through fighting. Now, largely we would know he is not done fighting. But what was that heat of the moment statement? How are we supposed to interpret that?
It was a fighter that had been through, who thought he'd earned the right to ask and receive concessions from the UFC. If I'm going to do this, I want it to be for a title. If it's going to be a title, it's going to be an interim versus Yoel, the number one contender. Then I'm right back there, knocking on the door with a rematch with Mike Bisping. So you're talking to a fighter who's been through camp, several weeks of busting his ass, and doesn't get what he wants, and has that moment where you just kind of throw up your hands. We've seen that moment before from fighters, but when fighters say they're done fighting, it's very rarely true. Vitor was done with the UFC just a little while ago. He was saying, "This is the last fight of my contract, and I think I'm going to go to another promotion, probably Bellator, do the tentpole matchups." Seems to be a very well-established pathway. But now he's talking about getting back, doing the UFC thing again. So, Anderson is obviously a guy who's very emotional at times, like a lot of fighters, and he was kind of reacting in the moment to the frustration of not getting the concession that I think he thought he deserved.
Yeah, okay, and fair enough. And yeah, he is emotional at times. I had a hard time burying Anderson for this. I wanted to. I was ready to bury him, but then something interesting happened. So he turns down Vitor. He won't do that fight. There was somebody else offered to him as well. I can't remember who it was. For some reason, I want to say Uriah Hall, but somebody else was offered to him, and he turned that down as well.
OSP?
Is that who it was? Was he offered OSP?
I know OSP was on the table.
At 205 pounds?
Yeah.
But Anderson had turned him down. I thought, well, what's going on with this? But then he called out the number one undefeated contender. So it's like, well, wait, I'm having a hard time putting you down if you're asking for the hardest fight available, and now all of a sudden you want it 5 rounds. The caveat of it must be an interim title. That one surprised me. He was the real champion for a very long time. To ask for an interim championship when the current champion is not hurt, sick, or hiding in a closet somewhere is a little bit bizarre to me. let's get rid of that caveat, but I have to give him his due. Nobody calls out Yoel Romero. Guys fight Yoel when they have to fight Yoel. Nobody asks for Yoel, and he did. So it's like, well, I'm kind of stuck here on putting you down for your lack of competitiveness when you're turning down fights, but you're asking for a harder fight.